Sarah Palin's meteoric rise had her scrutinized by the media and parodied on SNL, but she was also a successful TV sportscaster and governor before that. Here's how Palin briefly captured the nation, going from small-town beauty queen to John McCain's running mate. There was little in Sarah Palin's upbringing to suggest that she'd later become such a key political figure. She was born in Sandpoint, Idaho in 1964 to a school secretary mother and a science teacher father. She did, however, show her prowess as an athlete from an early age, particularly after the family moved to Wasilla, Alaska. While studying at Wasilla High in the early 1980s, Palin served as point guard of the state championship-winning basketball team. While playing on the team, Palin was nicknamed Sarah Barracuda. She was even appointed head of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and was a member of the cross-country team. Palin was also crowned Miss Wasilla after winning the town's beauty pageant in 1984. You could say that Palin was something of a nomad when it came to her education. Following her high school graduation in 1982, she reportedly landed a place at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. But in the first of many moves, she soon decided to transfer to Hawaii Pacific University, located in Honolulu, for just a semester. In 1983, Palin enrolled at North Idaho College. However, she once again transferred, this time to the University of Idaho. Palin then spent a brief period taking courses at Alaska's Matanuska-Susitna College. She ultimately graduated from the University of Idaho in 1987 with a bachelor's degree in communications. Palin was supported throughout her remarkable rise to political fame by her husband, Todd Palin. Sarah and Todd first started dating back in high school and eventually went on to marry in 1988.
We met in high school, and 2 decades and 5 children later, he's still my guy.
Todd earned a living running the commercial fishing business owned by his family before landing a position with BP's processing facility at Prudhoe Bay. Todd largely managed to keep out of the spotlight, even when his wife started making international headlines. But in 2019, he found himself on the front pages when he filed for divorce after 31 years of marriage. In paperwork submitted to Anchorage Superior Court, his reasons were cited as incompatibility of temperament. Sarah and then-husband Todd first became parents in 1989 with the birth of Track Palin. After welcoming daughters Bristol and Willow into the world in 1990 and 1994, the couple appeared to have completed their family unit. But 7 years later, they had a 4th child, Piper. Then, in 2008, they had another, Trig. That said, it's fair to say that their brood has almost created as many headlines. Track, in particular, has repeatedly found himself in hot water. In 2017, he was reported to have broken into the family home and assaulted his father while inebriated. The previous year, he was arrested following a physical altercation with his then-partner Jordan Lowe. Then, in 2018, he was charged with domestic violence and resisting arrest after an incident at his Wasilla home. The Army veteran ended up spending a year in custody for the domestic violence incident. Bristol, meanwhile, courted controversy by appearing on MTV's Teen Mom after becoming pregnant with her son Trip at the age of just 17. The reality star ended up in a bitter custody battle with the baby's father, Levi Johnston. Following brief periods working for local TV stations in Anchorage as a sportscaster, Palin took a major pivot into the political realm. In 1992, she was elected to the Wasilla City Council thanks to a campaign centered on opposing an increase in taxes. And within 4 years, she was elected the mayor of Wasilla.
Before I became governor of the great state of Alaska, I was mayor of my hometown.
During her 2 3-year terms as mayor, Palin set the blueprint for much of her political career, campaigning for gun rights and against abortion. In 1999, Palin's political career received a further boost when she was elected president of the Alaska Conference of Mayors. By the time she vacated her seat in 2002, the Republican had ambitions that extended far beyond the Alaskan city. In 2002, Palin started to make waves outside her Anchorage hometown with a bid to become the Republican Party's nominee for lieutenant governor. She wasn't successful, however, losing the campaign by around 2,000 votes. A year later, Palin was appointed by Alaska Governor Frank Murkowski to become the Oil and Gas Conservation Committee's commission chair. And although this position wasn't a direct route to the political elite, it still gave her the kind of experience she needed for her next challenge. That would come in 2006 when she defeated Murkowski in the Republican primary for governor. That same year, she emerged triumphant in the general election with victory over Democrat Tony Knowles, making her the first female governor in Alaskan history, as well as the youngest. Dubbed by the Anchorage Daily News as the Joan of Arc of Alaska politics, Palin certainly made an impression during her stint as the state's governor. But for the more liberal side of her community, it wasn't a favorable one. Palin advocated for a banning of same-sex marriage. Additionally, Palin supported pro-life legislation and the teaching of creationism in schools. The Alaska governor also found herself in trouble with the law. In 2008, an independent investigator was hired by the Alaska legislature to look into the firing of Walt Monaghan, a public safety commissioner. Monaghan had argued that he'd been fired because of his refusal to let go of Palin's ex-brother-in-law, Alaska State Trooper Mike Wooten. Palin insisted that she was innocent, arguing that Monaghan was guilty of egregious rogue behavior, according to HuffPost.
You welcome the investigation?
Absolutely, there's nothing to hide.
However, a subsequent report found that her own conduct had been a violation of Alaska's Ethics Act and abuse of power. Much to everyone's surprise, Sarah Palin was plucked from relative obscurity in 2008 to become John McCain's vice presidential running mate. As a result, she once again broke new ground, becoming the first woman from the Republican Party to achieve such a position. And the Alaska governor soon made sure that everyone knew who she was. Indeed, at the Republican National Convention in September that year, the ever-quotable Palin famously described herself as just your average hockey mom, before adding,
You know, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
And just in case anyone was still uncertain about her tenacity, the politician told ABC News' Charlie Gibson exactly why she felt prepared for the role, saying, "I have the confidence in that readiness and knowing that you can't blink. You have to be wired in a way of being so committed to the mission that we're on, reform of this country and victory in the war. You can't blink." Unfortunately for Palin, not everyone believed she was as prepared as she claimed, with many critics expressing concerns about her lack of foreign policy experience. The Washington Post, for example, commented that her first televised interview was strikingly devoid of the type of language typically used by government officials when talking about the U.S.'s relationship with Russia. Palin didn't exactly help herself either when she admitted that she hadn't had a passport until 2007 and that she had never come face-to-face with a foreign leader. She was also accused of contradicting herself on climate change when she appeared to accept that global warming could be a man-made issue after previously being something of a climate denier. And then there was the moment when Palin appeared to be confused by a question about the Bush Doctrine. Further sticking the knife in, the New York Times remarked, "Granted, this might not be something that your average hockey mom would know, but it probably is something that a commander-in-chief-in-waiting might have considered." It wasn't just the news bulletins that Sarah Palin dominated. As the 2008 presidential election gathered steam, she also became a regular topic of conversation in the field of topical comedy, none more so than on Saturday Night Live, where Tina Fey's pitch-perfect impersonation of the governor became almost as famous as the real thing.
And I can see Russia from my house.
After Fey starred alongside Amy Poehler in a sketch that poked fun at the vice presidential candidate, Palin told Fox News that she was able to see the funny side of being lampooned. She told the outlet, "I watched with the volume all the way down, and I thought it was hilarious. I didn't hear a word she said, but the visual was spot on." In fact, Palin was so amused that she agreed to appear alongside her convincing doppelganger on a later episode of SNL. A few weeks before the American public took to the polling booths, the politician joined Fey and Alec Baldwin in an opening routine based on a press conference.
I must say, your brother Steven is my favorite Baldwin brother.
She later appeared in the Weekend Update segment too, and she had a fun time doing so, telling WWOR-TV it was the most welcoming and friendly environment that you could imagine. Everyone was so nice, and you have to have a sense of humor through all of this. Of course, McCain's big gamble on Palin ultimately failed to pay off when Barack Obama was elected the 44th President of the United States in November 2008. Nevertheless, the losing candidate paid tribute to his running mate in his concession speech, calling her
an impressive new voice in our party for reform and the principles that have always been our greatest strength.
Palin subsequently headed back to her home state and in the summer of 2009 resigned from her Alaskan governor position, citing everything from lawsuits to ethics complaints as her reasons. Many believe this development was a sign that she intended to run for the biggest seat in the White House 3 years later. That same year, Palin founded her very own political committee, and in 2010, she aligned herself with the Tea Party, throwing her support behind several midterm election candidates. Palin was no stranger to the worlds of politics and entertainment, and she took her media onslaught to another level in the wake of her election defeat. In 2010 alone, Palin was appointed as a Fox News Channel commentator, published her follow-up memoir, America by Heart, and starred in her own TLC reality show, Sarah Palin's Alaska, which pulled in a record-breaking 5 million viewers. Then, in 2014, Palin launched her very own online network. Unfortunately, the subscription-based The Sarah Palin Channel failed to pull in as many fans as her reality show. Within a year, the former governor decided that any new content would go on either her Facebook page or her political committee's official website instead. Although Palin decided against running for the presidency in 2012, she didn't completely give up her political ambitions. In 2022, she decided to run for Alaska's only House seat in a special election. The seat had opened up after its former occupant, Republican Congressman Don Young, died in March of that year, and having previously endorsed Donald Trump for his successful presidential bid 6 years earlier, the former president returned the favor by endorsing Palin. However, Palin lost to Mary Peltola, a former Democratic State House member. In 2024, Sarah Palin appeared on We Are Family, the talent contest in which the studio audience must determine which disguised celebrity their civilian relative is performing with. The former governor of Alaska delivered an interesting rendition of Friends in Low Places by Garth Brooks, alongside her cousin JD. Remarkably, this wasn't the first Fox singing contest that Palin went undercover on. 4 years earlier, she dressed up as a giant pink and purple bear on The Masked Singer. But her run, which included an unlikely take on Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back, was cut short.